God in the whirlwind. Has the divine been removed from our experience in the here and now of our lives? Having said that, remembering God's transcendent nature prevents the solipsistic error of the calf worshippers throughout history who've mistaken their own lives or their treasured objects for ultimate reality. To point to the sine qua non beyond yourself is to know a transcendent God, even when this awareness is stirred by your own experience of life and its material limitations. So, what has this to do with the soul of art? I think that art can have soul in the way that a prayer is a bridge between the I and the thou. Of course, art itself doesn't have a soul in the traditional sense, but it can appeal to our soul, which yearns for the presence of the divine. By imagining or hinting at the divine presence, art can quicken faith or profoundly challenge it. Either way, it draws in the viewer to encounter the face of God, or to deeply question its absence. I use that terminology deliberately, for in the Western tradition it was Moses who begged God to show his face, and the answer came, no one sees the face of God and lives. Moses saw only God's back. Christianity changed that, but even Jesus was cryptic, half-hidden, sowing confusion among his disciples by answering their question with a question. Who do men say that I am? What do I mean by encountering the face of God? In Psalm 13, the lament is heard, how long wilt thou forget me, O Lord? Forever? How long wilt thou hide thy face from me? Jews and Christians who sing these phrases understand that sometimes we feel so lost, forlorn, or forgotten. Even the ability to imagine God escapes us. Losing hope is mistaking this finite existence for ultimate meaning of life. Joan of Arc said that imagination is the way God reveals himself to us, so that when the fourth psalm implores God to lift up the light of your countenance upon us, we know this to be an imagined benevolence, care, and love that the Israelites then and always hope to experience in their relationship to God. It is what all believers hope to experience in their relationship to God. If our soul is God's imprint on us, then the soul of art is God reflected in its mirror. The artist who produces religious art reveals in the painted or sculpted scenes from life a hidden, abiding presence of divinity which wills us to be more than anonymous players in a meaningless universe. The tragedy in Poussin's painting was his depiction of humanity as less than itself. The phrase taken from Paul's letter to the Galatians, which informs this year's Mandorla Art Prize, is a foundational Christian belief that Jesus was sent of God and born of a woman. It gave rise to the most pervasive image in Christian art, Mother Mary with her babe Jesus. By drawing on the universal mother and child union, a parade of the greatest paintings in Christian art communicates something about humanity that is more than itself. When is humanity more than itself? And when is it less than itself? Humanity is less than itself when it's reduced to mere physical existence, limited by the senses and self-centered drives, and opened Pandora's box. When is humanity more than itself? When its physicality is interpreted through a divine narrative and harnessed to a morality that is lived not for oneself, but for others. I know that to speak about a morally bound narrative is countercultural today. Social theorists say we live in a post-narrative culture, or is it a multi-narrative, possibly even an anti-narrative culture? All are touted as models of the modern West. But what will hold up a mirror to this life without an agreed narrative, if not something as visually powerful as art? At present, a great deal of art celebrates the absence of narrative, leaving only its materiality. I recently held a public discussion about the work of the Belgian Catholic artist Belinda de Bruckner, who recreates with forensic precision dismembered, decapitated, and amputated humans and animals. That they are headless is significant, not only because they are thus rendered impersonal, but they lack God's face. If we are made in God's image, then surely it is our face, the map of our feelings, which carries God's imprint. Belinda's creations shock and horrify. She says she wants to both frighten and comfort simultaneously. To what end? No narrative is provided. She doesn't believe in offering one. She says she does not have a narrative. But she does believe that horror can turn into affection. Isn't that the Stockholm Syndrome? Where the captive falls in love with his captor? Or is it the battered wife syndrome, where violence is mistaken for love? I asked a young attendant what it was like to stand around, looking at the huge horse carcasses, strung up, legs splayed, undignified, headless. His eyes darted around the room, wasn't sure what he should say. Then he said, "It was shocking at first. But then I got desensitized, and I saw the beauty in it." Desensitized. Is that what we're aiming for? Shall we next be invited to appreciate the beauty of masses of entangled bodies scraped out of an Auschwitz crematorium? What desensitized life form are we normalizing? It seems to me a deeply inhuman inversion, a world gone mad, demonic. Isn't that the vision of William Butler Yeats in his poem, The Second Coming? I'm sure you all know this. The blood-dimmed tide is loosed, and everywhere the ceremony of innocence is drowned. The best lack all conviction, while the worst are full of passionate intensity. When I note the smooth words wrapped around such brutalizing art by curators who don't question the flawed motives of their artists, but on the contrary, willingly promote their vision, I wonder if the best lack all conviction, while the worst are full of passionate intensity. Shall we drown kittens and call it art, and wink at its suggestion of lost innocence? What if the reverse message is received? Does anyone care? least of all the artist with no narrative to share? Something has happened to art. When Yoko Ono told the British art critic Valdemar Januszczak that a viewer is irrelevant to the value of her work, she explained that her art sends radiating energy out to the universe, and when there's enough of it, world peace will dawn. You might laugh or hope she's right. But either way, when the viewer's reactions to art are dismissed as irrelevant, then art loses its soul because it refuses to speak to our souls. We live increasingly in a world that is beset by crisis, and our own lives seem to be hedged in more and more by urgent tasks, pressing needs, necessary ambitions. This is the proverbial rat race, the existential anxiety that makes every life stretch across an abyss for a limited period of time until it snaps and disappears into oblivion. This is life lived without a saving narrative, and therefore without hope. Can art do anything to counter this all too familiar human condition, full of purpose but no meaning? Yes, but not the jumble of billboards and faceless office towers that bear down on our urban spaces, darken our skies, and reduce us to soulless beings. A brutal built environment designed by commercial artists and architects for hire does not improve our outlook, but worsens it, because it is blind to our souls. It provides no space for relief, for repose, for reflection. I recently found myself in the Australian art collection of the Art Gallery of New South Wales, gazing at paintings by Vaughan Gerard, Pegonet, Conder, Streeton, and Roberts. And I thought, what a marvelous gift they left us. In their scenes of pristine wild Australia and charming farmland, we entered a world that is not a photograph of a time long past, but an imagined Arcadia of serene beauty. Yet, it is the narrative they hint at which provides a message for our soul. I am aware that the spiritual narrative changes with time, that a Mondrian canvas in the painter's neoplastic style of cool order and balance was a harbinger of a new age that transcended the chaotic caprice of the organic world, the natural world. Mondrian believed that art could symbolize the moment when humanity is brought into consonance with the universe and society is composed of balanced relationships. Well, I think we are less taken today by abstract art's high hopes of a socially engineered world. Quite the reverse. Today, the tranquil scene of a landscape reminds us of the origin of things, of Eden, which the Western tradition placed at the very beginning of our story. And what was that story about? Of idyllic existence? Yes, but also one rent by human curiosity, desire, and will, leading to banishment, suffering, and loss, as well as a longing to return. So long as our art contains that story, it speaks to our souls of love, loss, redemption, of hope,